Welcome to another episode. Thank you for joining me. It's Career Coaching After Hours. I'm John Davidson, your host, and this is still the Deep Thought series. Can you believe it already? It's April 2024, and this is episode 5. This series, as I've said before, a quick overview, is somewhat audience agnostic. It's my way of literally doing career coaching after hours, so it's to a broad audience. So if you're in career search mode, or maybe you have a career coach, maybe you're job seeking, then I hope this series helps. I cover a variety of topics, and this one will be interesting and new. Of course, it's Earth Month, and so these always feature music and just myself, no guests yet. Couple of quick disclaimers, as always. Likely I'm not your career coach, so again, this is more broad-based advice and not specific to any one person or group of humans. And as always, it's to the best of my knowledge. So hopefully it's good, up-to-date information. I try to make sure I've cited things and provided some links as needed. And as usual, anything you see here on YouTube, maybe check your sources. Feel free to look at my background on my website or my LinkedIn profile and choose for yourself. All right, with all of that out of the way, I'm very excited to do this episode because, of course, it's not just Earth Day, it's Earth Month, it's April. And so often in April, we may be a bit bombarded with messages about being green or going green and sustainability, green messaging, what have you. And I find it to be a really interesting topic. I'm a bit biased. I've done a little bit of volunteer work for some green organizations over the years, and so I think it's a great topic, and I do try to recycle and be somewhat green myself. And I'll try to tackle a few topics in today's session. How does a career search enthusiast go green? So if you're in the midst of a career search, how might green impact that search? And are there any jobs in green or sustainability? And often when I say green or sustainability, I use them interchangeably. That's probably not appropriate, but that's what I do. So apologies if you see those as very different phrases. And the third question I'll try to tackle is, should green or sustainability be part of a discussion in job interviews? And I'll dive into that, but this kind of idea that maybe job seekers should know about the green scorecard or stances of an employer, but maybe should an employer know a little bit more about that candidate's background in green? And so as usual with this series, it starts out as a post or an article on LinkedIn, or it's a topic that clients have nudged me to write about, or it's something I've written about multiple times in the past. So you can see from that very small image there, this is a clip of a post that I did here a few days ago, but then also I did a post earlier this month about how April is not just the month where Earth Day is contained in it, it's also Volunteer Appreciation Month as well. Likely that'll be the topic of one of my next YouTube videos here. But yeah, feel free to take a look at that. There's some great links in there, and I'll try to cover a few of those. I'll also put them in the description here for the YouTube video. But as I mentioned, yeah, so Earth Day, of course, is in April, but it's also Earth Month. It's both. And like a lot of events where there's a day, there may also be an attached week or month. And I love this image, and I fully admit that I stole that. You'll see that cited in the notes there. So again, it's kind of this broader idea that maybe if you're in career search mode, or even if you're a hiring manager, maybe green should factor into the discussion a little bit more often than it does. And so I posted this. This is actually from the Harvard Business Review. I love this infographic. It's a great Venn diagram that touches on the 3 Ps: people, planet, profit. And you can say sustainability or green is right there in the middle of the Venn diagram. And I think this is a really interesting concept, or a graphic of this idea of triple bottom line reporting. And So that's a theme that I learned about years ago, and I think it's still taught in business school today, this idea that maybe we judge the success of a company, especially a corporation, not just maybe a nonprofit too, but by multiple standards beyond just profit. So for example, the Fortune 500, one could argue maybe that's just profit-centered, where maybe we should engage with our current employer, if we have one, or a new employer around, well, how do they treat people? How do they deal with social justice issues? But what about the planet as well? So feel free to borrow that graphic there, just say to the Harvard Business Review. But then, so often when it comes to green jobs, there are kind of two directions that clients often want to talk about. One is green jobs, jobs that are related to the cutting edge, you could say, as in companies or jobs that deal with issues like decarbonization or EVs, electric vehicles, solar, or even fusion energy. So we've got, for example, Helion here in Washington State, which I think is fascinating. By the way, I still want them to open up tours. Still need to check that out. Hint, hint, Helion. But if you take a look at this, if you look at the Green Jobs Report by the Department of Labor, which I think is a great article. The link is right there in the notes. It's in my article there too. So many jobs you could say that just didn't even exist 5 years ago, 10 years ago, 15 years ago, and so many of them. And I'll just click through a few here. I've got this pulled up on my other computer. But wind turbine service technicians, average pay of $61K, projected growth of 45%. Wow, really high. Solar installers, the folks that actually do the photovoltaic installations, annual pay around 48K, but 22% projected growth. So biochemists, biophysicists, 100K plus, 7% growth factor. So many interesting areas. Environmental engineers, environmental scientists. I'd say check that out. And what you see is typically some really strong projected growth in green jobs, not just here in Washington State where I'm based as well. You'll see this across the West Coast, East Coast, and across the board. But another way to kind of vet that out is, well, that's great. That's what the Department of Labor says, but maybe check out, I've got links to both Time and Newsweek, and big kudos to Newsweek for their ranking, America's Greenest Company 2024. And so I think a really interesting way to vet out maybe your employer or a potential employer, kind of see where they stack up. And they've got a searchable database. You can search on their score, their industry, revenue, headquarters state, and those kind of things. Very similar to the Fortune 500, but again, more on the planet side of things. And I think that's really fascinating. You'll see some big names and smaller firms as well. If I just sort here for Washington, nice shout out here, Costco, F5, Fortive, Zillow. Wow, some of my favorite companies. So neat to see that big doesn't always mean at the expense of the planet. So I think that's a really interesting ranking. Like I say, there's also a link that you'll see in there for Time magazine. And of course, this is Kermit the Frog, who reminds us it's not easy being green. But absolutely, if you have some time, take a look at that. One of the points that I bring up here too, and I talk to my clients about this quite a bit, is if you're an employee at any organization, nonprofit, for-profit, you could argue that their mission probably has to align to an extent with either your beliefs or the work that you want to do. And so I think this is kind of an interesting idea of, if you are an investor or an employee, you could say there's a lot of overlap. So if you're an employee of a company, let's say on the Time magazine list, that's ranking companies more based from an investment perspective, well, you could say that if you're an employee, you're also an investor. So feel free to agree or disagree, but also a really neat link there. then the last link I wanted to touch on just briefly is maybe this other direction as far as where you might look for green jobs or what types of green jobs. And that's not necessarily so much the cutting edge or the bleeding edge, but there's also a link there to the EPA, the Environmental Protection Agency. And they have a host of jobs in there. I counted about 80 different jobs that they've got open right now that deal with a whole host of issues, whether it's water quality, air quality, toxics. And a lot of these positions pay well into the six figures. I'm scrolling through this list and I see multiple that start at nearly 200K. And so you see these as attorneys or deputy directors or senior science advisors. You know, the type of roles that really do play a key factor in keeping our air and our water clean. And they need a whole bunch of folks to focus on accountability and compliance. So really, really important issues. And of course, it's not devoted strictly to kind of law enforcement roles. You'll see roles for chemists and life scientists and data scientists, auditors, really important jobs to make sure that the laws that we do have in place are followed. And so you could say if you love being green or you want to be green, you don't necessarily have to go in the direction of a brand new technology. It could be more focused on the emphasis of enforcing the laws that we already have on the books. And of course, that's just a state, or excuse me, a federal ranking. There would be rankings and jobs listed state by state wherever your location is. So hopefully those resources help a little bit in terms of kind of giving some context to this idea of what does it mean to be green, or can how you think about being green be brought into alignment with your current career path, maybe a different career path, or maybe if you are on the career search trail, that should be pulled into the equation. And I pose this idea in my article around where, let's say you're a job seeker. Wonderful. I mean, do you have the right to ask an employer about how green they are and how committed they are to being green and sustainability? I would say yes, absolutely. But I would also say the other side of the equation is equally true, where let's say you're preparing for a job interview. How then do you bring your best self into that interview process around maybe doing some volunteer work or maybe transitioning your skill sets into being more green? And so, like I say, I think there'll be an episode coming up around volunteering, and obviously there's so many different great opportunities to volunteer to make the earth a better place, a safer place, a cleaner place. There's also a link, if you go to my LinkedIn profile, that'll take you some good opportunities there too. So definitely want to make sure I say Happy Earth Month to everyone. And I appreciate any opportunity to invite Kermit into one of my presentations. So again, let me know if you have any questions about the links, or if you want to PM me or DM me, that'd be just fine. And as usual, this channel and series is subject to change, but if you have ideas for future episodes, I'm all ears. Feel free to fire those ideas over. I've got a few ideas coming up for future ones for the remainder of the year, but I'm always interested in your feedback. Brief outline of some of the sources that I typically cite, and like I said, there's some links in the description that I'll provide. And if you'd like to reach out to me, please do. You can message me here through YouTube, comments, what have you. Absolutely subscribe if you don't mind. Certainly that helps the channel grow. That's my direct number, office in Montlake Terrace, Washington, or you can email me right there, john@johndavidson.com, or john@olympicresume.com as well. And a big thank you, clients, supporters, students, viewers. Very much appreciate the views, the subscribes, the likes, the comments. Please keep that coming. I hope you like the series. I'm going to continue to do these for you folks. I enjoy doing them and putting them together. All right. Thank you very much. Take good care, and I hope you like the music. I may change it up next video, but absolutely check out Ghostrifter, Luke Hall, Sakura, and Chillpeach. They're so amazing. Thank you for letting me use your music. Very much appreciate that. Because if it was just my voice, I mean, who'd want to listen to that?